Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Hi. So, for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Lindsey Hall, and I am an intimacy and empowerment coach. And my mission, purpose, whatever you want to call it, is I really, really love helping women deepen an intimacy with themselves and with others and help them live a life that they absolutely fucking love and really just own their power and their pleasure. And so that is what everything that I do is all about. Hey. Um, and so I do these weekly tea break chats where I come on and I talk about like what's been going on in life in the last week or so, what's come up for me, what lessons I've learned, what's been happening, like real life stuff. And then I answer your questions. And this week, oh my goodness, I was blown away by your questions this week. There are so many of them. So I won't be able to answer all of them, but I will get to as many as I can. And then for those that I don't answer on here, I will come back to you in some other way. So don't worry. If you sent me a question, I will definitely answer in some way. But you guys were on fire this week. It was so exciting. I kept getting notifications and I was like, there's just more. So yay. So anyway, in terms of, let's start with the what's been going on this week. And there's been a few things, I guess. So the main thing is that I had like a mini vacation this weekend, which honestly I hadn't really thought about it that way. But so I live in Sheffield, which is in the middle of England, and I went to go see my friends who live down on the south coast in Dorset. It's like a 5-hour drive if you do it straight through. I made it 8 hours by stopping and having lunch with friends on both ways, there and back. And this is a friend who I have known for the last 12 years. One of my earliest Sheffield friends when I moved to England. They were our neighbors here in Sheffield, and she's actually, it was a couple, and she is from Texas. So it's like, what are the chances of these two American girls ending up in this tiny little row of cottages in Sheffield? But we did, and although they haven't lived in Sheffield for many years, we are still really good friends. So I had this weekend free, kid-free, and no plans. So I thought, I'll go down and visit because it's been a long time. And it was just amazing. So you know how some people are just like soul-level connections? And that is what she is. And her husband was there for some of it, but mostly it ended up being a girls' weekend. Well, we had a nice mix of like girl time of just me and her. Her 7-year-old son was there for part of it, and then her husband was there for only like basically Sunday evening. So we got to see like all the different combinations of her family. And I think the reason I want to talk about it, because you're like, yeah, why are you talking about visiting your friends, Lindsey? No big deal. We all see our friends sometimes. But the reason I want to talk about it is just a really, well, one thing because, like I said, soul sister level connection, and I just love that so much. So we talked like nonstop the entire time because there's so much to cram in. But then the other thing, and this actually came up maybe a bit more when I was chatting with her husband, was just the reflection on what it's like to have friends who you've had for so long, like I said, 12 years of friendship, but don't see very often. And it was interesting to sort of see, like, use them as a mirror almost to reflect myself back to me in terms of like how I've changed over that time and obviously how they've changed as well. And it's super interesting because these guys are like really big into doing the work, doing the personal growth, the really working through some stuff. They don't shy away from the hard conversations either with each other or with me or with other people. And they are big into that kind of stuff. And so really getting to reflect on, like how far we've all come in that time. And like our husband said to me sort of early on-ish when he got back, we were chatting about something. He was like, Lindsey, have you always been like this? I was like, I don't know, what do you mean? He said, you're really raw and like honest and truthful, and I love that. And I said, well, that part I can definitely say, yes, I have. That's what you and I have always bonded over, is like just the straight into real talk. Like he and I in particular have always gone to like, we don't do the small talk stuff as much. Like it's like, let's talk about the real things and say the things that don't need sugarcoating. It's one of the things I've always loved about talking to him is I don't feel any need to sugarcoat. So that I could answer instantly and honestly. It's like, yes, I've always been like this. That has always been how we bonded. But then after chatting, then we had a couple hours. Honestly, it was at least a solid hour of like dance party in their living room. Their 7-year-old son has got mad dance moves, I'm telling you. And so he was trying to teach me how to shuffle. Side note. It's really hard and also really, really fun. So I will definitely be doing some YouTube shuffle tutorials because my legs just don't move that way right now. And I want to try. So we had like this big dance party in our living room. And then we went out and like played football. So the 3 of us grown-ups and their 7-year-old son. And I was like right in there playing. And then put the kid to bed and he was chatting some more. And he commented like just that like your energy is so like refreshing and different. And that was really a good reflection for me of like I said, of how I have changed. And we were talking about how one of our memories from, it must have been 7-8 years ago, something like that, maybe less. We had all gone, so there was like my ex-husband and I and this other couple and then 2 other couples. It was like a group of 8 of us who were friends. And we had gone down for the weekend to visit them and all stayed in this big house together. And we're telling, so the husband specifically remembers a time where my ex and another guy were telling stories and they were exaggerated stories, shall we say. And I was just calling them out, like correcting everything. And he could see my ex getting like really deflated by it and being like, just really brought down. And he had to chat with me to say like, Lindsey, like, you don't need to do that all the time. Like, don't let the facts ruin a good story. And so in reflecting this memory back, I was like, that is very reflective of how I was a lot of the time with my ex-husband and how I would just cut him down at the quick all the time with stuff like that. Like any exaggeration, any lie in the story, and particularly in front of other people. I don't know if I did it so much in private, but in front of other people, I'd like jump in and correct, like, that's not what happened. That's not what they said. It was sad for me. It was hard for me to remember that. Like when this memory got brought up, I was like, that is what I did all the time. And that is pretty shit, for everybody. And it was just oh yeah. And having sympathy or having compassion for that version of me as well. But looking at our relationship and going, that is not a good place for a relationship to be in. It absolutely is not. To be like jumping on the other person as like at every opportunity and correcting, like it's not healthy for anybody in that relationship. And then it also just was a reminder as well in thinking of these old memories. And now this is where my friends and I have sort of different memories of things. But I have this sense where I was just so often over many, many years was like the fun sucker. I was the one who was just like, oh, have we thought about this? Oh, we can't do that. Guys, like, come on. Or just always like, so, and when I say we have different memories, they don't think that I was like always the fun sucker. Like they were obviously friends with me for a reason. And I was fun and, had a good laugh and stuff like that. And some of my friends very much are like, no, you've always been fun and bubbly. And I have always been bubbly. But there was very much a time, and specifically in relation to my relationship. So I can look back now and see when I was like with just my girlfriends, I was probably more fun and carefree. But in my relationship, I took on that fun sucker role a lot more often. Again, massive red flag. Like no good for me, no good for him, no good for our relationship, and surely not all that fun for everybody else to be around us. And it just was so like, about things. And so, and it wasn't just in my relationship. Like that was kind of how I was a bit more overall. And just, yeah, it was just like, and some of it wasn't, overthinking, like, it wasn't all like danger, risk, that sort of thing. But even like the dance party that we were having this weekend, and like, trust me, I looked ridiculous. And I know I looked ridiculous because we've got video proof of it. And I watched this video from this weekend and I'm like, oh my gosh, I look so silly. But also, I don't care now. But past Lindsey probably wouldn't have done that. In fact, wouldn't have done that. We used to have dance parties with our friends a lot, and like this couple in particular who I was staying with this weekend, like I associate pretty much a lot of my gatherings with them have involved dance parties over the years. So that's very much like a thing we do. But my dancing in the past has been like far more restrained and far more like I for sure wouldn't have wanted a video of it, and I for sure wouldn't have been as like going all in trying to do things. Like it just would have been very different. Whereas now I watch this video from this weekend and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I look like a fool because I do not know how to do this shuffle. This 7-year-old kid is showing me up, and also I don't give one single fuck. Like it was so much fun to do, and like we spent ages trying to flip a baseball cap and catch it on our head. Which, by the way, I managed to get. I had a bun in that day, so I managed to catch it in my bun, which is closer than anybody else got. So winner. But all of this, because it was with these friends who I have known for so long, I guess that was a chance to, it felt like a mirror shining back on myself and going, wow, I feel so much more fun, more open, more free, more follow what feels good, less people pleasy. Like even another example of like the less people pleasy part is on the Sunday morning, there was yoga in the park, and it was in this beautiful park, and like walking up there, you've got the sea in the view behind you past the rolling hills and just gorgeous. So we were going to do this yoga in the park, me and my friend, and then we stayed up too late talking on Saturday night because we always do, we have too much to talk about. So we stayed up really late just chatting on Saturday night. Sunday morning, did not wake up early enough to take the dog for a walk before yoga in the park. So my friend offered to take the dog for a walk on her own, let me do yoga in the park, and then come back and get me. And in the past, I probably said, oh no, don't worry about it. Like, we'll go on the walk together, and we'll rearrange. But this time I was able to say, if you're really sure about that, I would love that. Like, I really wanted to do yoga in the park, and it would have been so easy to blow it off to make sure that we did the other stuff. But instead I could say, oh, actually, this is the way that we all kind of get what we need to do. Like, you need to take the dog for a walk. I could go with, but I don't have to. I could do this thing that I really want to do and go do the yoga in the park. And it's only an hour. We'll meet up afterwards. And actually ended up beautifully because she and her dog kind of needed some reconnection time, if you will. Dogs are very much like kids in that she was feeling like the dog hadn't been listening, had been, messing around and not listening to her. And actually by spending a quiet hour, just the two of them going for this walk, they had time to reconnect. I got to do my yoga and felt so good afterwards. And then we went and had coffee together, and it was great. So again, like, I don't think past Lindsey would have done that, but current Lindsey was like, actually my desires matter too, and nobody is losing out here. This was not a case of, I want to do this, so I'm going to be super selfish and make everybody else like change their plans around me. It wasn't like that at all. Like, we get to have our desires and not be at the expense of somebody else. And it was beautiful and amazing. So, yay. All right, how am I doing on time? Oh, I'm talking too much. I better get on to the Q&A. So anyway, in summary, I think it's really cool to have friends who you've had for so long and then can see the growth in each other and in yourself reflected back over that time. It's just a really beautiful thing. So, yay. Okay, questions. I'm going to see how many I can get to. I had 7 questions today, and you guys know I usually only do, 6 questions today. 6. And I usually only do 2 questions on here, so I'm going to see if I can get through 3 of them. I'll see how quick I can chat. And like I said, I promise I will come back to you. For those I don't answer live on here, I will get back to you somehow. So all questions will be answered. Okay, so the first question is, and these are in no particular order, how do you keep your patience with the kids when you are depressed or having a super rough day? And this is a really great question. Okay, I'm going to say about all of them. They're all great questions. So keeping your patience with the kids when you are depressed or have a really rough day is really tricky, as we all know. Like, when we are fully resourced and fully filled up and, well slept and well fed and in a good headspace and all of that, like, then it's pretty easy to be patient with your kids-ish. I mean, I know your kid's pretty young, and little kids can still test our patience even when we're in the best of times. So when we are feeling depleted, when we are depressed, when we are having anxious thoughts, when we are just really not on top of our game for any list of reasons, it can be really hard. So my my pieces of advice here are, first, do what you can to resource yourself, to fill yourself back up. And it might just be micro moments. So I know if you are home parenting all day on your own, it's not like you can stop and do, all kinds of big stuff for yourself. Where you can, please try to keep filling your cup up as much as you can. I happen to know that you are already doing that, the person who asked this question. But for anybody else, let me say that is first, where you can get somebody to help watch the kids, where you can get somebody to take that off your plate for a little while and do stuff to pour into you in a bigger way, do that. But when that's not an option, when it's the right here in the day, here and now, you've got the kid all day and that's that, you can still find micro moments to fill yourself up. And that could be little things like, eating something really good that you enjoy. And I don't necessarily mean junk food and treat. It could mean healthy, nutritious, nourishing food. It can be things like, putting on the candle that you love up high, out of reach of any reaching toddler arms. It could be wearing the clothes that you feel the comfiest in. It could be wrapping yourself in a blanket. It could be, and so this might mean as well that your kid gets extra screen time that day. It could mean that your kid gets, just stuff that you wouldn't normally put up with. That's okay sometimes. So it's really sometimes it's about lowering your parenting standard, honestly. There are days when so usually I'm pretty strict on, we only watch TV in the afternoon and it's one movie is the limit. There's been days where we watch 2 movies and some TV episodes because that's just all I could cope with that day. So there's just having a lot of compassion for yourself, that not every day is going to be an A-star full of all the exciting, fun educational activities that you pre-planned and set out and had it out open in advance and all that stuff. In fact, none of your days might look like that, and that's okay too. But just knowing that you loving your kids is the most important thing, showing them that love. But sometimes it's okay to rein that back in and just do what you gotta do. Let them, like I said, have more screen time, have more snacks, whatever it is, and fill yourself up with those micro doses of you time where you can. And then put them to bed early. Maybe have an extra long bath time if they're good in the bath. Have an extra long bath time with extra bubbles where you just get to sit on your phone at the, next to the bathtub or outside the bathroom door even sometimes. I usually sit outside the bathroom door. I've got 2 kids, and they can play with each other. So that kind of thing. So that's my starting point for that. Having extra compassion for yourself and knowing that it's okay if it's not the greatest of days. That happens to all of us. Okay, next question. I'm going to try and cruise through these. Next question. I love this question. Booze or no booze on first dates? So this comes up a lot with people who are dating later in life. And by that, I mean 30s, 40s, anybody who's not teenager, early 20s, which is most of the people that I talk to on my dating after divorce chats and all of that. I don't do booze on a first date. I don't think, have I ever drank on a first date? Maybe one, but that's very rare. So I go into this side note, a lot of my friends who are still married to their person that they got with when they were teenagers, 20s, are baffled by this. They're like, what? I've never dated sober. We got together because we were just wasted and slept together or something like that. And that's a totally fine way too. I hear that from lots of my friends. But like I said, now me here dating at the age of 36, no, I don't drink on dates. And I do drink, just side note, because I know sometimes people on here think that I don't drink at all, and I do. I am definitely not teetotal. I don't drink very often. I notice a huge impact on my body when I do. I think I talked about this last week, actually. One of the questions was about stopping drinking. So if you want to know more about stopping drinking and noticing the effect on your body and brain, check out last week's Tea Break Chat. Anyway, but all that to say, I don't drink much, but I do drink, but not on first dates. And it's a waffly answer for somebody who's trying to talk quickly. For me, that's because I want to be really intentional with my dating. I do not want to have alcohol like clouding anything, even if it's only a glass. I don't want to do that personally. I really want to be there, fully present, fully intentional. I don't want to feel like I said something or did something that I wouldn't have if I wasn't drinking. I mean, not that one glass usually does that for me anyway, but I want to be fully receiving the signals that they're getting, that they're sending me. I want to be fully like noticing their energy, all the stuff. I just want to be fully there and present, because I think that's so important on a first date, because you're trying to and first dates can be sensory overload for me, not just first dates, but like any early dates. There's physical safety concerns as well. And I know I really felt this, especially in my early days of dating. But it's important that I don't get complacent with it now. Actually, now that I say that out loud, those safety risks are just as real every time you meet a new man. So, there are genuine, to me, going out and getting wasted on a first date is safety concerns, because you just don't know this person yet. That's why it's a first date. So I'm always my body is on a little bit of alert with a new person anyway. Then there's the stress of where I've parked my car and getting there if it's dark out and all of that jazz. Then you're trying to meet this new person. You're trying to hear their words and take all that in. You're trying to assess body language, energy. You're usually in a place where there's other stuff. It's just, there's a lot going on. And my body and my being just needs to have the space to absorb all this and cope with all this. And I want to do it, like I said, as fully and intentionally as I can. I don't want any of that numbed out, even to a tiny degree. Alcohol is a numbing substance, and I don't want to numb any of it. So for me, nope, no booze. Like I said, I think I can think of one first date I've been on where I had a gin and tonic. I think that's about it. I think all the rest, I don't. And I also, just on that note, want to say, because I've talked to other people about this, and sometimes some women have told me about experiences where the men then give them a hard time, or not the men, the person they're dating, it could be any gender, where somebody else will give them a hard time about it and make them feel like a prude or a stick in the mud or whatever else. And I will say I've never had that happen, but to me that's also just a good litmus test, because if I say if somebody orders a beer and I say I'll have an orange juice and I get a hard time about that, I don't need your pressure telling me I have to drink. If you're going to give me a hard time about what I want to choose to drink, and you think that me not drinking alcohol on a first date is some sort of awful thing, well, you may show yourself to the door then, sir. To me, it's a really good litmus test of if you're trying to pressure me into something that I don't like, then we're already off to a bad start. So it's also helpful in that sense. Okay, I think I've got time for one more, so I'm going to answer this one really quickly, which is kind of funny. The question is, do you genuinely enjoy your super full days, or are you trying to put a new lens on it? So yesterday I posted on my story saying oofta, that was a beautifully full day, and I did all these things, and and I love this life that I'm creating. This question came off the back of that, I think. And so do you genuinely love those really full days? And or are you trying a new lens on it? I see my super full days as a negative because I need time to think. And yes and no is my answer to this. So I do love having beautifully full days, and I see them very differently than I did before. But also, I don't like being busy all the time. I need white space in my calendar. I need free time. I need time where there's nothing planned, time where I can do whatever I want. And my body has rejected the super fullness that my life used to be. My life used to be busy. It was full, but it was also busy. And to me, busy and full can be different. And I mean, my goodness, it was I was just run off my feet all the time. I had a full-time corporate job, single parenting the kids. For quite a long time, I was the primary caregiver for the whole time. And then life stuff, so there was a lot. These days, I don't have that. I'm in charge of my own schedule. I 50-50 parent. I have a lot more freedom over my time. And even still, I can sometimes be like, oh my gosh, how did I have time for life before? I barely have time for life now. And that's when I take on that's when I sort of put on a different lens and go, hang on, you actually have quite a lot of time for life and it is beautiful. So no, I don't love being super busy. I need free time in my days. So things like so Monday I was in the car most of the day. Well, okay, backing it before that. Friday I was in the car driving down to the South Coast most of the day, left right after I dropped the girls off at school, stopped and had lunch with a friend on the way, got back in the car, got to my friend's house, spent the entire weekend pretty much go, other than the yoga in the park, and I also spent 2 hours on the beach, which was amazing, by myself. But then Monday got back in the car, saw another friend for lunch, got back, came home, saw somebody else, everything was go. Tuesday was then a very full day. That was yesterday's story when I was like, yep, I have 4 calls, I have this to do and that to do, and it was busy and full and beautiful, and I loved every moment of all of those things. It wasn't stressy busy, but it was full. Today, I have done pretty much fuck all, which was not my plan. I have a lot of work that I want to get to, but it's all my stuff that I am in charge of all of my own work. So I haven't done the post that I wanted to do. I haven't done some other stuff that is on my list, but that's okay because I know that I needed breathing room. So I did some food prep this morning because I'm working on my food and nutrition intake. So I did some of that. And then I took an hour and a half nap. And it was so needed because I was so tired. I probably could have kept napping, honestly. And that's pretty much what I've done today. Is food prep and napping. And I have a bunch of messages in my inbox from you beautiful people who I want to reply to. And like I said, I haven't done this other work. And that's okay because I had to pour into me first. I had to give myself some downtime. And then after this, I'm going to go get the girls from school and do mum mode. And then tonight I've got a coaching call from 8 till 9. And then I'm going to switch off. So instead of catching up on the stuff I didn't do after my coaching call tonight, which sometimes I do, but tonight I'm not going to. Tonight I am going to just put it all down. And I have to make lunch for girls for school tomorrow, but that's it. And so my answer to the do I genuinely love these full days is yes and no. I absolutely adore them. Everything, all of this good stuff was so good and it was full and soul nourishing. Everything I've done that from Friday till Tuesday, that stuff I was just telling you, was very soul nourishing and filling me up. I fucking love my job, getting to be an intimacy and empowerment coach and talking for a living and talking and hearing people's stories and coaching. Oh my God, I fucking love all of this. And I need space and time for myself too. And if I don't get it, things start to go a bit haywire. And I know I need to come back to myself. I need to give myself that space. So I very much leave that sort of space. And then similarly, tomorrow is a full day. It's going to be I've got stuff all day. And so I know that come tomorrow night / Friday, again, I'm going to need a bit of blank space. So I have nothing in my calendar on Friday because I'm going to need that to sort of offset the fullness of tomorrow. So that's how I sort of manage that. Okay, I've gone. In fact, I think I'm pretty good on timing today with those 3. So I'm going to leave it there. There are more, like I said, that I will answer. I will come back to you somehow, whether it's privately, individually, or whether I do another one of these. Maybe I'll do a bonus. We'll see. But I promise I will answer your questions. So, and same if you next week, please don't ever be like, oh my God, she has too many questions last week, so I can't send one in this week. No. Disregard that. Your desires, matter. Your desires and your questions all matter. Please send them to me. If I get too many, that's a great problem to have. I will handle it. Not yours to worry about. Send me your questions. I absolutely fucking loved seeing all the notifications popping up, being like, another question. Yes. So send me your questions for next week if you want to. You can send them in advance if you want, or I'll do the story box next Tuesday like I always do. As always, you can check out my website, lindseyhallcoaches.com, for ways to work with me. I have one-to-one coaching spaces available now. So if you want to talk to me about one-to-one coaching, let me know. And if you want to look at any of my programs, they are up on the website. You can always send me a message to ask me questions. If you're like, hey, I kind of want to work with you and I don't really know how or what that looks like, send me a message. Let's chat. Like, that's the really cool thing about, buying from a person, is that it's not just like, I've seen your website and it didn't have what I wanted, therefore I cannot buy it. It's like, no, I'm just a real person, and we can talk about what it is that you need and how we can make that work for both of us. So always feel free to get in touch. If there's anything in today's tea break chat that came up for you that you're like, oh, I want to chat about that more, or I've got a comment on it, let me know in the comments or a message. I love these to be like actual dialogue and conversations rather than just me talking at you. So yeah, I think that's it. Let me know if I've forgotten anything. Okay, otherwise, I will see you back here next week on Wednesday. That's it. Okay, I love you. Goodbye.